Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Big Rican on Sports podcast. I am your host. I am the Big Rican on Sports, Mike Martinez. Today is Sunday, November the 30th, 2025. Now, I am first of all apologizing. It has been nearly 3 years since a solo Big Rican episode has been recorded, obviously live from my new studio in Brunswick, Georgia. But I have put most of my focus outside of work for this stuff with the Wise Guy Sports Show, which I do every Sunday night. Well, Friday last week, but Sunday this coming week, with my co-host, JC Blue Note, Mr. Jim Carnetti. He will not be on this episode. This will be just me. Another thing about this episode, it will not be on the Big Rican page. It will be on the Wise Guys page for one reason and one reason only. I am fucking pissed. Let's get the happy stuff out of the way. I want to send out a congratulations and a thank God to the 2025 Big Ten Ohio State football team. Not only have you not lost since losing to that team up north last year, you beat their ass yesterday. So thank you for that. Made my Saturday a lot better than it's been for the last 4 years. Okay, so let's get to the elephant in the room. And that elephant in the room is the New York Mets. Now, as all of you know from watching or listening to this episode or this podcast over the last 7 years, the New York Mets are the biggest fanhood that I have that's not my family. I have lived and died with this franchise since my birth in January of 1979. There are pictures of me that April on opening day with my father and the Mets on. The Mets are in my blood. I want to stab myself. So let's get into why. And of course, I'm being facetious and angry, but still. Let's get into why. Let's start with why number one, and that is the 2025 season. A season that started with a lot of hope for this franchise to bring its first championship to New York, to Queens, since 1986. With the big ticket acquisition of the $765 million man Juan Soto, the Mets went into 2025 with momentum from their magical run of 2024, which should have set up a 2025 that left us wanting more. Now it leaves us wondering where this franchise is going to go come 2026. So let's talk about the good things that happened this season. Number one, Soto started off slow, went from that slow start to nearly being 40-40. He goes 40 and 38, or 43 and 38, sets his career high in home runs in a pitcher's park. In July, Pete Alonso broke the all-time Mets home run record, hitting home run number 253 in his second at-bat of a game against Atlanta off of Spencer Strider on a ball that was not a Pete Alonso-esque home run. This was a line drive that no one thought was getting out. The best line of the year from SNY was Gary Cohen. The polar bear stands alone on his own personal iceberg. Ron Darling got a chuckle out of that. But here was the problem. When the Mets went on their magical run in 2024 that started in June, they were doing everything every night. They were pitching, timely hitting, which is more important than just hitting in general. And their bullpen was holding leads, and they were getting outs when they needed them. That did not happen in 2025. Here's why it didn't happen in 2025. David Stearns didn't do his job in the offseason from 24 to 25. Let me put some proof on this. The best pitching acquisition he made was Clay Holmes, who they were converting from the closer of the New York Yankees to who started opening day for the Mets. Holmes was good. Griffin Canning was very good before an injury ended his season. Sean Manaea never got off the schneid because of injury at the beginning of the season. Kodai Senga got hurt. A lot of the Mets' problems was injuries, and I understand that. You're talking to somebody who watched them in 2008 go this close to the playoffs, limping to the finish line because of injuries, and then by the middle of 2009, their best player was Jeff Francoeur, who wasn't even on the team in 2008. David Wright had a down year because of injuries. Jose Reyes had a down year because of injuries. I've lived through it, so I understood that this was going to happen. Well, once again, it came down to the final day of the season, and it came down to the fucking Marlins. The fucking Marlins. And the Mets lose the final game number 162, and they're out of the playoffs by virtue of losing the tiebreaker to the Cincinnati Reds. Newsflash, they lost the tiebreaker to the Cincinnati Reds because their bullpen once again couldn't hold a lead. And with the bullpen not being able to hold a lead, you thought they had it figured out. Because at the trade deadline, David Stearns went out and got Clay Helsley from the St. Louis Cardinals. He got Tyler Rogers from the Giants. He got Gregory Soto from, I believe it was the Baltimore Orioles. Those three arms leading Edwin? You should have won that division by a mile. Philly lost Zach Wheeler. What happened? Here's what happened. The starting pitching would average probably the lowest in Major League Baseball, and they were walking the absolute insane amount of people. Like population of Manhattan, insane amount of people. And it bit them in the ass. They couldn't get a fucking hit with guys on base. I mean, you know you're in a rut when the third hardest hit ball by a player all year lands in somebody's glove. Alonso hit a 116-mile-an-hour line drive that got snagged in left center field in Miami with the bases loaded. That ball lands and goes to the wall. The Mets win the final game of the year, and they're in the playoffs, and who knows what happens. Because God knows once you get to October, crazier shit has been known to happen. Which brings us to where my boiling point started. My boiling point is not with the front office, although I'll get there at the beginning of the offseason, although I'll get to why it's there now. My boiling point is with these people who call themselves Mets insiders and content creators, half of whom could be my children. They're so fucking young. They've never lived through this shit. They've never, ever once lived through the pain that Met fans who are over the age of 40 have lived with. They didn't live through the worst roster money could buy. They didn't live through Kenny Rogers walking Andruw Jones to end the 1999 NLCS. They didn't live with Mike Piazza hitting a ball that any other day of the year would have been at a Shea Stadium to end Game 5 of the 2000 World Series. They were either not born or too damn young. And they sit here and want to get rid of players. I understand you think they need to make improvements. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. But here's the problem, and I'm going to throw out a trivia question. I'm going to cut this part for TikTok too. What players have the New York Mets drafted or signed as an amateur, have played 10 plus years in the major leagues, and never wore any uniform but the New York Mets uniform? The answer is going to come at the end of the show. Because that little trivia question, I'm going to find a way to cut and put up on TikTok. So that way I can start engaging with some of these people and I can see just how young and or stupid they fucking are. Which gets me to the front office. Last week, the New York Mets traded the guy who would have been player number 4, as they sent Brandon Nimmo to the Texas Rangers for Marcus Semien. I will honestly say my first thought when this happened was Roberto Alomar. And that failed experiment. Now, I got to meet Roberto Alomar in 2003, which was wonderful, with Alomar's family being from Ponce, the same city in Puerto Rico my father's from. Getting to take a picture with Roberto Alomar, it was wonderful. I still have the picture. Having said that, Marcus Semien ain't it. Now, let's diagnose the trade and be fair, because the one thing I think I've done over the years with this is be fair when I'm diagnosing trades and what the Mets are doing. Marcus Semien makes them a better defensive team on the infield. He does. I believe this has the potential to be one of, if not the greatest middle infield in New York Mets history. Defensively now. But here's the problem. Marcus Semien's bat hasn't done a fucking thing for a couple of years. Not a fucking thing. He was great in 23 on that World Series run with the Texas Rangers. He got his World Series ring. Wonderful. He hasn't done dick since. David Stearns even mentioned in his presser, well, his contributions with the bat aren't what we got him for. Are you fucking serious? Nimmo nearly went 30 and 100 in left field. How many left fielders in Major League Baseball did that last year? Not many. Not many. Not many outfielders in general. Off the top of my head, I can think of two by the name of Soto and Judge. Nimmo set a career high in home runs and RBIs last year. He's the guy you started the season with in the cleanup spot. What the fuck? And he had a waive a no trade. This is the thing. He wanted to stay so bad, he asked for a no trade clause. He didn't believe in the vision of the richest owner in baseball and a guy who's supposed to be not only a baseball savant and a phenomenal front office guy, but a lifelong Met fan. He didn't believe in their route for this franchise. The fuck are we doing? What are we doing? This offseason, in my opinion, and again, my opinion is my opinion. It's going on the Wise Guys page. Jim doesn't give a shit about the Mets, okay? He's putting this up here because we have the explicit lyrics thing on our show. This offseason should have been for one thing and one thing only. The offseason of pitching and Pete. Because now, with their defensive-minded moves, they're going to get rid of Pete Alonso. Mark my words. Pete will not be back with the Mets, and I hope to God I'm wrong. Excuse me. So my question is to all you moron content creators out there. How do you replace 70-plus home runs and 200-plus runs batted in? Because the people you're going to mention, someone should slap you into a fucking coma. Kyle Tucker, you don't know if he can handle New York. You don't. And if you lose Pete Alonso and you bring in a Kyle Tucker or a Schwarber or somebody else and they have a dog shit first year in New York, they're going to be eaten alive because they won't have that buffer of the guy who's done it from day fucking one. Pete Alonso should be a New York Met for his life. He should wear one color uniform from college through his professional career. Because, see, the University of Florida wears blue and orange. I've said it on the show, both here. I said it in the blog, if you haven't seen that. And I'm saying it to you guys now. It is cosmic that on September 29th, 2018, we said goodbye to the captain, to David Wright, the greatest developed position player in New York Mets history. And only the second player that on the same day have his number retired and be inducted into the New York Mets Hall of Fame. There's only one other guy. The captain did it last year. The franchise did it in 1988. Because the Wilpons didn't retire 31 until after he went into the Hall of Fame. Mike was inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame in 2013. His number was retired 3 years later when he was inducted into Cooperstown. I was there. So both Alonso and Diaz opted out, which was expected. It was expected. Everybody knew they were going to fucking do it. Anybody knew if Pete had a good year this year, he was going to opt out. If he had a dog shit year, he was going to opt in because then he'd get $30 million. Why wouldn't you opt in at that point? Or $24 million. Why wouldn't you opt in for $24 million after a bad year? Diaz was more of a crapshoot. Remember, Diaz signed his contract after 2022 and then had the 2023 where he missed the entire season. 24 really didn't get on track until close to the second half of the season. Because coming off of the patellar tear, you have to build back into game shape. And you have to build back into those pressure situations, being able to pitch back-to-back days. It's a different animal. Having said that, his 2024 and 2025 were magnificent seasons. This team was set to go with tweaks here and there. So, let me give you what I think the Mets should do this offseason. And what they're probably not going to do. Number one, you need to give Pete Alonso the contract he wants. I don't know how else you can do this without doing that. How do you not give him what he wants? How do you not give a guy who now is the Major League Baseball all-time leader for most home runs ever by a rookie? He now leads your franchise with most home runs ever hit in franchise history. By the way, that was year 7. Year 7. And one of those years, they only played 60 games. And he broke the record in the middle of the season. Unfucking real. Does Pete have his defensive issues? Yes, he does. Fully going to give it to you. But let me say this to Met fans who will listen to this. No one, not Olerud, not Zeal, not any of them. Stop being fucking spoiled. We had Keith Hernandez, and he is still a Met to this day. Knock it the fuck off. This fan base, and I love this team. I adore this team. I live and die with the New York Mets every day of my life. My phone ringtone is Meet the Mets. I wake up to Meet the Mets every morning. I love this franchise. We are a fan base that got spoiled by players who were otherworldly. And now we measure everybody next to them. There are only 2 players we should measure next to anybody in this franchise. And that's Seaver and Wright. That's it. Keith won a World Series and an MVP in St. Louis. Mike Piazza won an All-Star Game MVP and was otherworldly in L.A. Beltran made his bones in Houston and Kansas City. Delgado is the all-time leader of home runs for the Toronto Blue Jays. Reyes up and walked out. Strawberry, Gooden. They up and walked out. They left us. Pete stayed. You cannot insult this man with this. You can't. Pete Alonso needs to be priority 1. I'm sorry. Because there is a lot of teams in the league that have offensive problems. And if Pete's gone, the Mets are going to have offensive problems. Because how do you replace nearly 40 and 120? You don't. You think Mark Vientos is going to be any good defensively at first base? You think he's going to sniff 40 bombs and 120 RBIs? No, he's not. He's not. You think Murakami's the answer? Murakami, who has a batting average below 220 on fastballs over 93? Yes, you heard it right. I actually did the research. He's under 220 on fastballs over 93 in the last couple of years in the MPB. How's he going to make the transition? I don't get it. You going to move Soto? What are you going to do? All you fucking brainiacs out there who think they got the answer for if Pete Alonso walks, guess what? You don't. Stop pretending. Open your eyes and understand that if Pete Alonso is not in the lineup, guess what? The Mets are not as good a team. Please understand. They are not nearly as good a team if Pete Alonso is not in the lineup. Let's talk about Diaz. Edwin Diaz needs to be a New York Met for the rest of his career as well. His tenure started very badly in New York. 2019, I asked for him to be deported, and I know he's from Puerto Rico, where my family's from. You can't deport him. He's American. I wanted him gone. Send him back to the island. What Edwin Diaz did in 2022 and 2024 and 2025 and even 2021 to some level has given him the ability to be here for good. You need to build the bullpen around him. Tyler Rogers should be retained, as should Gregory Soto. Helsley already signed with Baltimore. You need to build a bullpen around him. You need to build a starting rotation that has depth, that has longevity, that has the ability to pitch 6 innings a night. Now, the one good thing that came out of pitching last year is that we saw some of the guys that we're going to land our future on. Nolan McLean was an absolute vision. in spin rate and just wins. Jonah Tong was very, very good. Brandon Sproat didn't get as many starts. I didn't see as much of him. We saw Blake Tidwell last year, who was okay. This Mets team needs pitching. Pitching, 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 pitching. I'm going to say it again. Pitching. And if David Stearns, look, this will never get to him. Hell, Jim's going to put this up, and then he's going to tell people not to listen to it because it's the Mets, and I don't give a shit. David Stearns has got to stop thinking he's in Milwaukee. Does that mean I think he should go out and make a trade for Skubal or Skeens or somebody? Only if you don't have to give up your entire roster. Some of the ones that I've seen out there, just stupid. I saw one where Tong and Sproat go. No. I'm offering McNeil and Beatty and Vientos and other guys first. And one of them, not both of them, one of them. And Sproat, I think, is the guy who should go. I think Tong is going to be a better fit in this rotation. And I think Nolan McLean is your opening day starter in 2025, or 2026, excuse me. You need to make sure Sean Manaea is healthy. They just cut bait with Frankie Montas, thank God. This team is easily fixable. It is. You have great talent on this team. Brett Beatty started coming into his own with the bat. I think Mark Vientos had a year he'd like to forget with some injuries and some bad play. You brought in Marcus Semien, but you still have Luis Angel Acuna, who is killing it in the winter leagues right now. You have Carson Bench in the minor leagues, who looks like he's going to be the starting center fielder in New York on opening day. So you have ways to fix this team. What you need is, to quote Lou Brown, something to bring it all together. What is that something? What is that something for this New York Mets team? You have the reports coming out from Mike Puma, who, by the way, the Phil Mushnick fucking disciple, that piece of shit, both of them. I'm sorry. But if you spend a lot of time with people who are different than you in a high-pressure situation, there are going to be times when you disagree. Jeff McNeil is one of the most fiery son of a bitches you have ever seen wear this uniform. Why does it shock you that him and Lindor, who is another fiery player, argue? Lindor and Soto were, and they're talking about, their relationship between Lindor and Soto was frosty. Let's talk about the part of their lives both guys are in. Lindor is a married man, father of 3, who is using his notoriety to start building his post-career, because I don't think he'll sign another contract after this, his post-career world, because he wants to take care of his family. Soto is get in, do my work, play the game, go home. They're two different guys. There's nothing wrong with people not getting along in a clubhouse. It happens. Not every team is the 86 Mets, who are all going out and drinking and whatever, doing all the drugs and everything else they did together. And by the way, not all those guys got along. Read the Bad Guys 1. They weren't all buddy-buddy. They were probably a little bit closer than this team, but it was a different time. My main issue with this franchise right now is, what is the plan for the offseason? Because right now, all you have done, piddling signings, bringing guys in on minor league deals, losing Helsley to the Baltimore Orioles, making the deal for Semien. So basically what you're telling me is, ramping up to January 1st, your plan was ditch out on a guy who's been in the organization since he was 18 years old to bring in somebody who is 35 for saving a few bucks for the next few years, and letting a guy who could have replaced Edwin Diaz walk. That doesn't sound like the offseason start for a team that's got eyes on a championship in 2026. It sounds like a team that's going to start a full and total rebuild. You can't do that with this kind of payroll. You can't do that after spending $800 million on Juan Soto. You can't do that with Francisco Lindor's $341 million sitting on the books. You can't do that and lose one of the best pure home run hitters this league has seen in the last 20 years. So why the fuck are we taking chances at it? I understand not signing Pete long-term after last season. He wasn't that good. Or after 24. Wasn't that good. He had the postseason. He was great. Wasn't that good during the season. Get it. Get him back in the fold. Pete had the year. Give him the money. Back it up. Diaz is a priority. And pitching is a priority. What I would do if I was the Mets, I would reach out to Detroit. Especially after Dylan Cease signed the 7-year, $210 million contract with Toronto. I would reach out to Detroit. I would offer a package of prospects. But that is contingent upon Tarek Skubal signing a long-term contract with the New York Mets. It's not hard. Look at your prospect list. Look at guys who could pitch for Detroit right now. I would give him Sproat. I would. I would part with Jet Williams because Carson Bench, I think, is going to be the long-term solution in center field. I would throw in Jeff McNeil. Detroit needs somebody who can plug and play in different places. Jeff McNeil's your guy. If Skubal is what you want as the New York Mets front office, you have to make the deal. And you have to make sure he stays. Because if you make the deal and you take the chance he leaves and he does, guess what? You're just a fucking fool. Oh, wait. You're Brian Cashman. Because his biggest trade of his entire tenure as the Yankees GM, which started in the fucking 90s, is playing right field in Queens. Apparently dating Mia Khalifa. Interesting. But I digress. I'm pushing the 30-minute mark, so I want it to end here. So let me give you what I would do if I was the Mets this offseason. Immediately, I am calling Detroit. After Pete Alonso was signed. Pete Alonso gets 6 years, gets 180. You make him the highest paid first baseman in the league. Edwin Diaz is signed 4 years, 85. Again, highest paid reliever. You want to give Diaz an opt-out after year 3? Go ahead. Go ahead. Here's where it gets interesting. I do call Detroit. And I offer Brandon Sproat. I offer Blade Tidwell. Oh, Blade Tidwell got traded, didn't he? Never mind. Anyways, I offer Jet Williams. I offer Brandon Sproat. I offer Jeff McNeil. Go through the minor leagues. Find other players they're going to want. This is going to be a 5 or 6 player for one deal. Structure it however you want. For Skubal. Then you tell Detroit, we will not finish this deal until he is signed long term. It's what they did with Santana. Injuries is why the Santana deal didn't work. Performance was never an issue with Johan Santana. Then I have to shore up the bullpen after Skubal. You may have to do it with pieces in the organization. You may have to do it with some converted starters. But you have no choice. The New York Mets need to go all in on pitching, and you're coming to a point now. Lindor's in his early 30s. Pete's going to be 30. Or Pete's 30. Diaz is getting a little bit older. Soto's one of the youngest of the bunch because he came up so young. You still have young players in Beatty and Vientos who can contribute every single day. You now have Marcus Semien who's going to come into a place and have to be... Listen, you're going to have to deal with the ghost of Brandon Nimmo. End of story. This franchise, this team, these colors, that name across the front of the jersey, it's in my blood and it's in my heart. And I just talked to you for a half an hour about what they need to do to bring a winner back. I was 7 years old when they won the World Series. I'll be 48. No, I'll be 47. God, I'm aging myself. I will be 47 years old in a few weeks. I haven't seen a title since. I've seen 2 trips to the World Series. I've seen 3 other division titles. I've seen a couple wild card berths. I've seen a few trips to the NLCS. I've seen a wild card game for the ages in 2016. I've seen teams come out of nowhere and win. But I want to see that championship. But the core of the team needs to be built, not bought. My favorite moment of the 2015 World Series was after Cespedes got hurt, because 8 of the 9 position players on the field were drafted by or brought in via trade, developed, made their major league debut with the Mets, and they were all on the field. Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate, Matt Harvey was on the bump. Michael Conforto in left, Juan Lagares in center, Curtis Granderson in right. Around the infield, Wright, Flores, Murphy, Duda. Curtis Granderson was the only player who hadn't made his major league debut with the New York Mets. Do you want to know what they all have in common? What every single person on that field minus one has in common? They didn't finish their career with the New York Mets. They didn't only spend their career with the New York Mets. That was the captain, and the only one who did it. He's in the rafters now. 20 should be there too, but he needs a few more years. This team can win a title next year, if they're not fucking stupid. And for all you creators and everybody out there, here's the answer to the question. The 3 players who have only spent their entire careers after being drafted by, developed, and brought up by to the major leagues by the New York Mets are Ed Kranepool, Ron Hodges, and David Wright. Unfucking real. Jim and I will see you guys next Sunday night as we break down what happened on Conference Championship weekend, going into the playoff, as the actual bracket will be announced at noontime a week from today. Have yourselves a great one. I will hopefully come to you with more Big Rican episodes in the future. Hopefully not as profanity-laced, tiraded as this one was, but who the fuck knows, because the Cavs are starting to piss me off too. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you soon.